Okay, we're taking a look at Jackson at the Crossroads, which was Volume 5 in the TSS series of games, and it also came packaged with the Battle of Corinth, both battles taking place in 1862. The bonus with Jackson at the Crossroads is you get two battles on one map, the battles of Cross Keys and Port Republic. And I think Volume 5 is my favorite in the entire series. Now they call it Volume 5, but if in a literal counting of the games themselves, it would be, what, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 8th game using that system. They're not counting Stonewall as Volume 1, nor Bloody April as Volume 3, or anything like that. Looks like they renumbered the series with Pre-Rage because it was intended to be a series of games. I thought the height of the series was with this volume. It kind of was the last of the SPI era. I think these are all SPI games. Then we entered the TSR era. That was a new publisher. And then, of course, then Strategy and Tactics took over. So, I don't know. I thought the best of the series was in this early series after Jackson and Corinth and even Gleam of Bayonets. They began to change the system enough that it almost became unrecognizable by the time we got to Gringo and these later titles. They changed the series too much. So in my opinion, this was the peak of the series. And we're just going to take a brief look at Jackson at the Crossroads and tell you a little bit about the battle. The best way to show this battle is to demonstrate the action after the Union have moved for turn 2. So this is the general situation. Jackson's division is encamped here in the fields north of Port Republic. Jackson himself is in the village here, and his artillery train and supplies are encamped beside the village. Ewell's division is deployed here at Cross Keys to the north. And you are allowed some latitude in this setup. This is just a particular setup that I've chosen. You're not bound to that setup when you play the game. Now, coming from the north is Fremont's division and Blenker's division. You can see them in column coming in. And they outnumber Ewell about 2 to 1. So we've got a very interesting situation here. We've got a Union army coming in from the north, Ewell defending. Jackson's army unalerted here, encamped north of the village. And another Union army under General Shields marching along the pike here, headed towards Port Republic. So Jackson's got himself in a bit of a fix. He's between two Union armies, and he's got to fend them off. I think this is why I like the situation for Jackson at the Crossroads better than some of the other battles. It's a very intriguing one. So by just showing turn 2, gives you an idea of what the situation is all about. Each turn is still about 45 minutes, and various reinforcements come in, some more for the Union and a trickle in for the Confederates. The Confederates on turn 2 have to start rolling a die to see when these guys are alerted, or if they are fired upon by Union troops, they would become alerted, or if any Union troops come into the village of Port Republic. But I think it's in the best interests of the Union for them not to alert the Confederates too early. That's the way I'll play it. Now, back in the 1970s, when we played a lot of this game, we played the historical scenario with all of the constraints on the Union commanders. But I think I'm going to fool around with this today and play the wide open scenario. One of the things I didn't like about the series was sometimes they tried to be too cute, tried to script the games too much, and put a lot of rules in to hamper the player to try and recreate the historical situation. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I kind of like the old Avalon Hill philosophy, whereby they gave you the board, they gave you the order of battle, and let you go at it. You decide what you want to do. You had to play within historical parameters, but they didn't bind your hands. And I think that's the way to go if you want a wide open game. And that's the way I'll play this one. But I'm not going to do a playthrough. I just wanted to show you turn 2 to give you an idea what the situation was all about. Now, by volume 5, as I mentioned, this system had really reached its peak, in my opinion. Each game had to be tweaked a little bit as to stacking rules, the number of SPs, the number of sections of batteries that could be in the same square. And this title was no different. So they had a new stacking chart, which was very clear. You had a very colorful terrain effects chart, which told you all the different costs, your terrain effects on combat, and your range effects for all of the different weapons. And this system is very cool for showing you the differences in artillery, for example. You had howitzers, 12-pound Napoleons, 6-pound rifles, Parrott rifles, 20-pound Parrott rifles, rifled muskets, carbines, pistols. All the different weapons were there. On this scale, it made a difference. And of course, a very colorful, well-done terrain chart. Now we'll take a look at the counters to show you what was at that time period. The counters for this series, I thought, represented the very best in Civil War games. By this time, they had ironed out the brigade combat effectiveness rules. So you got, of course, charts that gave the brigade combat effectiveness. As each regiment took hits, you marked them on this sheet, and you marked the units with number markers too, to show when they took hits. And I thought it represented the best of the system. Now the counters themselves, let's say a word or two on those. They were done in the dull finish, which was popular with SPI at the time, and they were very functional. For example, it gave the regiment's name, the 8th Louisiana, the brigade to which it was attached, and there's Taylor, and Taylor's 8th Louisiana of Taylor's regiment. The little 4 was the morale number, and R indicated rifles and strength of 4, and a little wee silhouette of an infantryman firing. There was General Taylor, letting you know that he's of Jackson's division. The command range, and that's the rally number to help rally, combat, pardon me. So they were very functional. They weren't the shiny counters of today, which I thought was still good. I like the dull finish. And I like the fact that there isn't these colored bands everywhere, and there was just not overuse of color. Instantly you knew that those gray units were Confederate. And conversely, the Union, marked the same, instantly you knew that those blue units were Union. They were simple but functional, just not like the counters of today. And your brigade or army leaders were a brighter red to indicate that that was a major leader like Jackson. Same went for major leaders like Fremont, a darker blue. I thought the counters were just excellent. And for the batteries, you've got there the 12th Ohio of Fremont's division, HA howitzers, 2 of them, and a morale of 4. And the flip side was its limbered side, again telling you what division it belonged to. So, I don't know, I thought these represented the best in the counters, and I was very sorry to see a deterioration in later titles. We had the almost unforgivable, crappy graphics that appeared in Rio Grande, which I reviewed. It was purported to be the same system, but the counters were just so inferior, they were almost a disgrace. So, Jackson at the Crossroads, to me, represented the height of where that system was going. Now, like the other volumes, Jackson at the Crossroads had its own exclusive rules, of course, and these, of course, laid out the situation and the special rules that would be required for things like the North River Bridge, burning it, and Jackson and the Stonewall Brigade combat effectiveness. There was also quite a few rules on Fremont's Corps, which were sort of command control, and waking up Jackson's encampment, things like that. Things that were that you would need to portray the situation at Port Republic and Cross Keys. But I think they went a little bit overboard on them, and but fortunately they did have a wide open scenario, using the old Avalon Hill philosophy, where Avalon Hill's philosophy was, we give you the board, we give you the counters, and you just go at it. And I thought that was okay for this scenario. I'm playing this out now, and I'm playing with the wide open concept where I can move the Union wherever I can within the standard rules. I really believe that the standard rules should be standard, and you shouldn't need too many exclusive rules to make a particular game work. That is, if your standard rules are any good. And I think the standard rules for this series is just fine the way it is. I don't like the evolution that it eventually became. So that's it for Jackson at the Crossroads. It's just a brief introduction to the game, and perhaps later on we'll take a look at the Battle of Corinth. Might do a video on that. That's also another very interesting battle, but very difficult one for the Confederates, since they are attacking a Union army that's entrenched, and that's always a tough proposition in the Civil War. So that's it for Jackson at the Crossroads. Of course, the game designer is Richard Berg. Graphic design was Redmond Simonson, and Eric Lee Smith helped develop it. And I misspoke in the video. I said we played this in the 70s. That's not quite true. The system was invented in the 70s, but this particular game is a copyright 1981. So we were playing this in the early 80s. But that's Jackson at the Crossroads, one of my favorite in the great battles of the American Civil War. Thank you for watching.